Play view contains some important performance controls. To start with, on the left, we have the clock module over here. And this is used to control the tempo of time-based effects in the effects section, also of the arpeggiator and the LFO rate, which operates at a specific speed. Now, when we use this within a DAW as a plugin like you're looking at now, we have this sync to host button that allows it to operate at the tempo of the host project, or we can set it manually here. Now, when we use this in standalone mode, this becomes a tap tempo button where we can tap to establish the speed of these time-based effects. Now, here we have the keyboard module, and this allows us to operate in monophonic or polyphonic mode. Now, in polyphonic mode, we can have multiple voices or notes sounding simultaneously based on the maximum number that we have here. Here's a little polyphonic part with some chords and some melody notes on top, and I'm going to play it for you now with the number of voices here greatly exceeding what's in the part so we can hear it as it's intended. So here, every voice is sounding and being heard properly. We have a priority field here, and this functions differently when we're in polyphonic and monophonic mode. So in polyphonic mode, this control determines which of the either last, lowest, or highest notes is going to be muted in order to replace it with the newest note played. And this happens, or kicks in, when the number of notes here being played exceeds the number of voices here. So let's say I had this set to 3 or 4 and I had 7 or 8 over here. This would determine which notes get dropped. Now, when we're in monophonic mode, traditionally this means only one voice or note is heard at a time. And here, the priority determines which, again, lower, last, or highest note has precedence when several notes are played. So here we can see several notes are played, but only one is going to be heard because we're in monophonic mode. So if I set this to high, you'll notice that certain notes don't get triggered when they're overlapping. So these notes didn't get triggered because this one's higher and it's overlapping it. And this one came in late because this one is overlapping until after the note on, and this one didn't get heard as well. Now, if I set this to low, the behavior is going to be different. Notes only pop through when the low notes don't overlap. So we're only hearing this low note, except when it doesn't happen and other notes are there, then we'll hear them. And finally, we have last. And here the overlaps have no effect. All note ons are triggered based on the timing positions. So we're not going to hear multiple notes, but they'll all get triggered when a new note happens. So whatever new note comes has priority. And finally, we have an error knob over here, and this adds a random error to the pitch of each note played. And as we turn it clockwise, we get it more detuned. And you won't hear it that much since there's only drums accompanying it, but with other pitched instruments, you'll hear that it'll be out of tune. Now we have a unison mode, and this is used to stack voices for a thickening effect. So I'm going to turn it on, and we can have either 2 or 4 voices, and we can detune them to get a thicker kind of chorusing or detuned effect, and also delay the time between the copies that are generated. And let's put this to polyphonic mode. So you can get a kind of subtle or an aggressive thickening effect, depending how you set it. Now finally here we have glide mode, and this is used to create slides between the notes. I'm going to set this to mono mode since this is the intended use for this, for when we're transitioning between notes. And we have 2 modes here, proportional and constant. And constant mode means the time necessary for the pitch to slide from one note to another is always the same, regardless of the interval between the notes. Now I'm going to just switch here to another example. You'll see that I have notes that are wide intervals and some that are close intervals. So let me bring this back, and we'll start by listening in constant mode and hear what the transitions sound like as I dial up the time here. Now in proportional mode, the slide time becomes proportional to the width of the interval between the two notes. So it'll be different when they're wider and when they're closer. Now we have legato mode as well. And with this, that pitch transition or slide is only going to occur if the second note overlaps the one before. So for example, these long notes that overlap will hear the pitch transition, but these short staccato ones with spaces between will sound as expected with no pitch scoop at the beginning. So you can control the glide that way by deliberately overlapping notes where you want it and leaving spaces where you don't. So those are the main play view controls.